homemade pinto beans. Let's make them. You can leave them whole, you can refry them. I'm about to show you right now. To start, obviously we need our beans. I'm using pinto beans, but you can also use black beans. You get basically the same thing, it's just up to preference. One step you have to take before cooking your beans, and this step should be done all the time. You have to sort your beans because sometimes they'll have little tiny rocks, pebbles, or unwanted, ugly, dirty pieces of beans that you just want to make sure you take them all out, kind of like this one. Once you sort your beans, get all those ugly, weird pieces out, we're gonna soak our beans. Soaking our beans is not necessary, but it does speed up the process when cooking them. I'm soaking my beans overnight. This is just room temp water. I'm gonna leave them covered in my microwave. Right now you can see that there's like about an inch, if not more, of water above the beans. Once they're done soaking, they plump up, they soak in majority of that water. We're gonna strain this water out. By soaking the beans, we're gonna reduce our cooking time from possibly 4 to 5 hours to about 2.5 hours max. After draining the pinto beans, we're going to discard the soaking water and we're going to use new water to cook our beans. We only need a handful of ingredients to get some delicious homemade beans, and that's garlic and some onion. I'm just going to cut them in half. I'm using the whole garlic head and only half of an onion because it was pretty dang large. And I'm also using a couple of bay leaves, and that's pretty much it. Onion, garlic, and bay leaves. Once you have all your ingredients ready, get a big pot. I'm only using a pound of beans, so this pot is kind of small, but if you want to do more, just grab a bigger pot. Add the beans, the onion, the garlic, and the bay leaves, and cover it with water, about 5 to 6 cups. Just make sure they're fully submerged. Once you're ready to start cooking your beans and everything's in the pot, put it on your stove, crank the heat up to high, and let them come to a boil. Once they're boiling, we're gonna cover them with a lid, reduce the heat to like a medium. At this point, all we're doing is cooking our beans until they're fully tender, which can take anywhere from 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours. You want to start checking them at about the 1.5 hour mark. And by this point, you may have noticed that I hadn't added any salt. This is probably a myth or not, or it's true or it's not, but my mom has always told me never to salt your beans at the beginning or else they'll be too tough. They'll take forever to cook. Add the salt halfway through the cooking process. To know if your beans are completely cooked, grab one, place it between your fingers. If you can easily smush it with no resistance, your beans are ready to enjoy. Before we can do anything else with our beans, we have to remove all of the excess onion, garlic, and bay leaves. Once you've removed the onion, the garlic, the bay leaves, you can serve your beans whole or refry them. I'm going to show you how I refry them, but you can leave them whole, freeze them whole. To make your refried beans, get some cooking fat in your pan. I'm using avocado oil. If I had lard, I would have used lard. Then add in some onion and jalapeno. Cook them down for about 5 to 7 minutes or until they're fully softened. Not a lot of people cook their beans like this, or specifically their refried beans, but my mom has been doing them like this for forever, and I just simply can't eat refried beans any other way. Obviously, we have to salt along the way. I used about a teaspoon of salt for this and about a teaspoon of black pepper. Once the onion and the jalapenos are fully softened, we're going to add in 1 diced tomato. Once the diced tomatoes are in, we're going to cook those down for about 4 to 5 minutes, just until they're completely softened and almost falling apart. Once this mixture is cooked down, it should look something like this. We're going to bring in our beans. I'm using about 2.5 cups of beans with some of that liquid. Once the beans are back to a simmer, we're going to start mashing them. I just use a potato masher because I like a chunkier consistency. I know some people will use an immersion blender to get like a fully thin, smooth consistency, but it's all up to preference. Once you have your beans at your desired consistency, they're pretty much good to go. The longer you let them simmer, the thicker they're gonna get. So I let them simmer for about 7 to 10 minutes. And now with any of the remaining beans that you didn't use up to refry, you can do whatever you would use beans for. I like to separate them into Ziploc baggies and then freeze them. They'll keep in the freezer for a couple of months, if not longer. This way you'll make sure that you always have homemade beans to go whenever you have a recipe that requires beans. The same goes for these prepared refried beans. They'll keep in the fridge for about a week. You can also freeze them. Full detailed recipe and ingredients and measurements and all of that will be in the description. And if you haven't, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, do whatever you can. I appreciate you all so much. If you have any suggestions or recommendations for the next YouTube video, drop them in the comments.